there was a podcast that really a lot of people were talking about, and it came to my attention. And it was an episode on the Dissenter pod, which is a podcast with Rania Khalek and Kevin Gostola. Both of them do great work when it comes to foreign policy, especially, you know, in West Asia for Rania. And with Kevin, it's the surveillance state, which is interesting to me because I believe the COVID situation and the COVID narrative is extremely tied to the surveillance state. In fact, it is one of the most comprehensive acts of a complete violation and an utter total just manipulation by the empire, by the imperialists in power, by the fascists in power against the people, and engrossing of power of the surveillance state via this sort of shield under the sort of for the benefit of all, for your health. And so I think the surveillance state is very prevalent in that, which is why it's really disappointing and interesting that I find a lot of people like them don't see that, because I do think this is an issue of empire, 100%. There's no separation. So let's get to it, Sam. Let's start with your times that you set out.
Well, these are all our times. We're going to start right from the jump, because I think it's really important to hear Ben, the way he kind of starts off this whole situation. I don't know if you at home want to play along with us. You remind us what type of people you saw on the interwebs who were at this rally. Here we go. Let's roll it.
What's happening right now with the Canadian truckers, if it's even right to really call them all truckers, has been getting so much attention. Ben, you've been covering this a lot. You've actually received a lot of praise from those who agree with you and a lot of hate I've seen.
Mostly
from those
hate.
Who disagree. Mostly hate. Well, it probably feels that way because people online are so loud.
Yeah, but the percentage of it.
Yeah, exactly. But so I think, why don't we do this? Why don't you lay out the mainstream media, or maybe not the mainstream media. Why don't you lay out, the mainstream media narrative on the truckers, the sort of pro-trucker narrative, and then what's actually happening here as far as you see it?
Well, it's an interesting way you framed it, Rania, because I think it raises this point that, to be fair, the mainstream media is not pro-convoy in Canada. But also, I mean, the mainstream media was against Trump. That doesn't mean that Trump is good. Like, I mean, the mainstream media is pro-Biden and Biden's awful, but the mainstream media was against Trump. That doesn't mean that suddenly Trump is good. Just because mainstream corporate media is against something doesn't mean that it's good. Like, obviously, we all oppose mainstream corporate media propaganda and war propaganda and all of this, but that doesn't mean that you take a contrarian position where everything that the mainstream media says is inherently bad. Therefore, anything that it's criticizing is ipso facto good. No, that's ridiculous. That's dumb logic. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of the media is against the convoy because all you have to do is go look at any video or photo and you'll see a bunch of right-wing fanatics. And yes, I mean, not every single person participating in this convoy is like a hardcore right-wing nut job, but it is led objectively by right-wingers. It is led objectively by non-truckers, by the way, and we can talk about this. In Canada, 90% of truckers are vaccinated. 90% of the truckers that drive across the US-Canada border, which is what we're talking about here, 90% are vaccinated against COVID-19. And all of the major truckers unions, including Teamsters, which is, this legendary union. It's known for its militancy. It's a great union, a trucker union. Teamsters Canada came out hard against the convoy, calling it led by right-wingers, saying that it has elements of racism. And then you see these people say, well, look at this photo, look at this interview of this brown guy or this black guy at the convoy, just tokenizing people, ignoring like all of the right-wing nut jobs who are.
Sam, the right-wing nut jobs. Go ahead, go get them.
Okay, so first of all, at least I have to give credit to Ben that he did correct Rania that the mainstream media narrative isn't pro-trucker, because it's not. It's been absolutely anti-trucker, and he's right. Just because the mainstream is against somebody doesn't mean that it's automatically good. But you have to look at the counter narrative to everything, right? Example, Donald Trump. Why did the mainstream media hyper focus on Donald Trump so negatively it wasn't just because they didn't like him and because the liberals, the media leans liberal, and because it was just that simple of a, 1 + 1 = 2 equation. It was because they needed people to hyper focus on Trump in order to get people to vote for another this racist segregationist 1994 crime bill author, Joe Biden, because we wouldn't be where we are today without the manipulation and the propaganda and the narrative management of the people by the media. And of course, they're corporate oligarchs that fund them. So you can't just say it's that simple. It's not. And the reason why they're hyper focusing on the truckers as being a bunch of right-wing lunatics, even though he talks about all these pictures, it's like I've seen like one picture, and it's the same picture plastered all over the mainstream media. And it's the same articles being shared by the same few people that are mainstream media affiliated people. And we're going to have Kit Clarenberg on Friday to talk about how the CIA and the intelligence community are involved in a lot of this propaganda against the truckers. But I digress. So you can't just say it's about that, right? And so then he calls these people right-wing lunatics without any sort of like proof, just like that's just a name. These are all right-wing lunatics. And then he says, well, it's not everybody, but it's a lot of them. And it's like, okay, but there's no proof to that. You're just saying this because you're coming to this whole situation from your ideology, right? And I share a similar ideology to Ben. I really do. Like I believe, I love Nicaragua. I believe like in workers should own the means of production. I believe I'm an anti-capitalist through and through. I don't believe in capitalism. I mean, anybody asks me like, what do you align with? And I say, oh, you know what? I align with communism the most. But like people don't like, why does it matter when you're trying to search for the truth? And the truth is these people have been framed by the mainstream in order to divert attention from really what are they fighting for? They're fighting against authoritarian draconian mandates input by a neoliberal right-wing government in Trudeau, that by this powerful state and overreach of the surveillance state. And we're also, people also here and people all over Europe are also fighting that. Why are you not talking about the frozen bank accounts? Because throughout this whole entire thing, and I listened to the whole thing, there was not a single mention of what Trudeau's government was doing by freezing bank accounts, pretty much making mutual aid illegal and going after all of these people that were even affiliated with these truckers. So for me, it's none of the things he has said. It's just very alarmist, and it's very, very much rooted in this whole, I am a leftist, so I must hate these people and I must find things that prove that this whole thing is wrong. Yeah. And so that's what I saw, at least in that first part.
And that's the thing that really sticks out more than anything is just the immediate playing of team sports, right? I'm a leftist, so I have to hate these people by both, Rania and Ben on the show. I mean, I watched most of it. I didn't even see Kevin say hardly anything, but, and we'll eventually get to Rania and stuff. But fam, you're right. It's mostly comes right out of the gate. And what happens is, and it's so crazy to see Ben Norton kind of like, use the same tactics that the mainstream media uses right now. You know what I'm saying? By throwing out these kind of like absolute truths of sorts that are really not even, have any knowledge of them, and you haven't done their homework with the research. They're not even truckers that are there that started this thing. You know what I'm saying? This is mostly people from the outside. They're all crazy right-wing lunatics. All you have to do is, look at a video and stuff. And, these unions are great. You haven't done any work on these unions. You don't know shit about these unions whatsoever.
Teamsters,
so, yeah, the Teamsters, right?
Sorry to interrupt, but Teamsters is one of the most co-opted unions by the Democratic Party, especially, and I know this because living in California, they're literally support the Democratic establishment.
Absolutely.
Anybody can tell you that the vast majority of unions are entirely co-opted via the leadership. Not necessarily by the people, but via the leadership. And all these unions are pro-mandate. So, of course, the unions are going to stand against the truckers. That doesn't tell me anything about anything. And also the tokenization. Oh, so you're mentioning these brown people, you're tokenizing them. It's like, no. Like these, you're trying to erase these brown people by not, these people of color by not like putting them out there
by not acknowledging their
pretending
story,
their existence.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
they're there, they're not, you know, and we'll get into more of that later. But yeah.
And the thing about it is, you know, the playing of the team sports goes right into it and stuff. There's the straw man arguments, the playing of team sports. It's just another unmasking. And like I said, to me, this is very, very dangerous. This is very, very divisive. So, I mean, and the only other position is if you're taking an anti-mandate stance, right? Okay. The other side of it is you're playing into big pharma. So whether you like it or not, you're taking a fascistic approach to things when you're pushing back against a workers' revolution like this that's taking place. So let's roll the next clip, Oz.
Who are there. And then let's look at the funding sources. So in addition to all of the major unions, the Canadian Labour Congress, Teamsters Canada, the Canadian Truckers Association have all come out against it. We also see that the Indigenous community, First Nations leaders have all come out against the convoy. And furthermore, we see that if you look at the donations are coming in from not only right-wingers in Canada, but right-wingers in the United States. And this is a matter of fact. I mean, this is not a matter of your opinion, your analysis. This is an objective fact that there is tons of right-wing funding coming in. And you can see all these right-wing networks in the U.S. heavily pushing it, especially this guy, you know, Jack Posobiec or whatever his name. I don't know how you pronounce his name. This alt-right guy. He was boasting he changed his name to like Trucker something on Twitter. So now they've all become truckers overnight, by the way. So he was boasting of how there was a $215,000 anonymous donation, a single donation of $215,000 that was made to this GoFundMe campaign for the convoy. Now, I don't know about you guys, but people who have $215,000 sitting around to donate on a single day, that's not working class. We're talking about oligarchs here. And what happened in this campaign? So after this convoy was organized, by the way, it was originally organized by non-truckers. So there were a few truckers who came in, although most of those truckers are owner-operators, and many of them have their own companies. And we can talk about this in a second. There was this brilliant Twitter thread that someone in Canada did showing all of these companies. And by the way, the irony is that many of the company owners that are participating, these are trucker company owners that they employ truckers. So they exploit working class truckers. And their bosses showed up to this convoy. And there was this person on Twitter who did this great research going through all of the photos showing the trucker companies present at the convoy. And this researcher found out that a huge number of those small business owners received money from the Canadian government over its COVID small business program, funding these company owners during COVID. So, I mean, it's peak irony. It's like all the beautiful boat owners, the beautiful, Trump, he referred to all of his supporters in Florida as the beautiful boat owners, I think he said.
Fam, this part I put up there because I wanted you to give a little clarity, and we can speak about this when it comes to the funding, right? Okay. We've been at a lot of Black Lives Matters marches. We've been at a lot of, left ideology marches, whatnot. And we understood that there's bad money in there. We have talked about it. Like, people talk about the money that comes in from Soros or wherever else and everything else. That doesn't matter. The people who were there at those Black Lives Matter rallies, they are there because they believe in something that they're pushing back against the police state, that, as being a person of color, that their lives are more at risk. And that is why they are there. They're not tied to any ideology. They're not tied down to Soros or the Democratic Party. In fact, down the road, we saw a lot of these groups leaving because of these reasons, for other reasons maybe. But can you give a little insight to why it's okay? I mean, why you're never going to get away with big money getting into these things anyways. There's going to be Republican donors, but that's still not going to change what they're fighting for on the ground. This is an anti-mandate fucking movement. And here's the thing that just drives me crazy is that when he said before about 90% of the truckers are vaccinated, yeah, and they're still pushing back against mandates. How come they get there, but you can't get there? It's not anti-vaccine. They're not anti-vaxxers. They're anti-mandates, which is very, very fascistic. And the bringing up the Jack Posobiec or the smear tactics, Team Bloom, Team Red, the alt-right guy he called him, You know, these guys don't even own their trucks, fam. You know, these people own their trucks. A few of them showed up. I mean, it's really great that we get to hear a guy in Nicaragua tell us what's going on in Ontario.
So it's as old as time. Until as old as time, the astroturfing, the co-option of movements, it happens all the time, especially on the left. So I would expect leftists to understand that that's going to happen. There are going to be people, and there are people that are trying to co-opt this movement just the same way that liberals were trying to co-opt the Black Lives Matter movement, that they sent their own, supporters that were Trump Pence out now, and they would get people to try to convince them to vote for Biden, and how Donald Trump was a fascist, and how this would all go away if Joe Biden were president. They were doing that. They were astroturfing these protests. There were also agent provocateurs trying to start things up to get a blame on BLMers and to call everybody Antifa. And there was also these people of Antifa that played right into that role, because they would be upset by some sort of right winger that would come in, and they would just be this whole fighting that really got nothing done. And that's what happens in these gigantic movements that happen, because especially if it spurs out of nowhere, if it's very decentralized, and what happens is there's an attempt to centralize it and to put this power into one source. And so there are money ties of George Soros, and a lot of neoliberal organizations donating to Black Lives Matter. So that didn't make us say, oh, well, this movement is entirely co-opted. So a lot of people on the right were like, well, that's co-opted. I don't know why you guys are supporting that. No, well, I support what these people stand for, so I'm going to support it, regardless of what, these outliers might be there. And this is always going to happen. And so fast forward to now, right, where the issue isn't about even consistency. It's about the fact that they don't support, they're not anti-mandate. So now, because they're not anti-mandate and they don't think this is an issue, they think this is a non-issue, and they think that people should be respectful of work policies that protect all of us, like getting a vaccine. This is why a lot of people on the left they're not saying it, but that's why they consider these people. It's so easy for them to paint these people as right wing and blah 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 and fringe, because they're not anti-mandate, because they believe it's stupid to not want to get a vaccine. So that's really at the core of this, and it's not just inconsistency. It's because that's at the core of it. And it's the fact that they can't understand that, these money ties that may be there. And I don't put it past people like Jeff Sobiak. I don't put it past people on the right who are grifters, because they exist. Grifters exist on the right just as they exist on the left. And what they do is they catapult themselves into a movement that they see as strong to try to co-opt it. I 100% agree with Ben on that. That is happening. 100% that is happening. So fucking what? You fucking take that movement, you go talk to those people, and you say, listen, you guys are anti-mandate. Well, what happens after the anti-mandate? What are you guys' plans are after? How was the before, right? Because one of the criticisms of this protest is they're trying to go to before, when before wasn't good. And I agree with that, but that's for them to decide, because it's what they're doing. If the left wants to start a movement that is anti-mandate and anti-this and anti-that, go ahead. But look where we are in the United States. We can't even agree that we should stand behind workers, because we're so busy trying to define if it's okay for us to support it because so-and-so said something positive about it and so-so said something negative. There is a lot of hypocrisy on the right. And this is something that comes up often, that came up during the panel I had with Nick, who felt like there's a lot of hypocrisy. People like Tucker Carlson now talking against police when they were supporting police doing BLM. Is that hypocritical? Absolutely. Is it wrong? Absolutely. Fine, call it out. But at the same time, understand that these people are there to promote this same exact thing. They're the same as Ron DeSantis is against censorship when it's an issue he cares about, but not when it's protesters protesting for Black rights, right? And so I agree that there is a hypocrisy of it. That doesn't mean you throw out the whole thing and you make it this generalized blanket statement and say these are all right wingers and therefore we should just completely stay out of it. And not only should we stay out of it, we should condemn it and criticize them and act like these people are the most dangerous Nazis in the world and hyper focus on it. We're focused on it because we've been anti-mandate from the start. We've been talking about this shit for 2 years. We've been talking about this shit where we wish that we could have a movement to counteract this surveillance state, because we know where this is going. This doesn't end with COVID. This is going to the fourth industrial revolution. And so I think it's people that haven't made this connections that don't really see like where this is at.
Yeah. I also just think that there can be hypocrisy in every single freaking movement. You can go in there and you can start nitpicking on both sides of the fence, saying this side didn't do this, or this side didn't do that, or this side didn't acknowledge this, and this side didn't acknowledge that. And Glory said the best on that show the other day. And if you guys didn't get a chance to watch it, go to Frank Analysis and go watch that show. Watch it on Rokfin, please. Let's get the Rokfin love. But Glory even said those people in the streets that she goes and talks to. And what I've gotten written up about in the Daily Beast is something that Glory does more than me. Like, Glory goes and talks to both sides all the time at these rallies. She fucking preaches and she fucking says it right. And she talks about when she connects with these people over there, and she was talking about the beauty that what Corey Morningstar saw out there when it's a rally that can go on both sides of the fence and just give a broad brush of just different types of people from all different types of the working class. That's a rally you want to get behind. You know what I'm saying? I'm sorry, but with some of these arguments, well, we can't recognize this thing here because they didn't recognize the oppression of those people right there. That's got nothing to do with the price of tea in China. It's like I said, and if your movement didn't work, then you did something wrong. Maybe you weren't inclusive. Maybe you didn't do what Bobby Seale did, which was come in there and say, hey, what can I do for you? And seal that bridge. I mean, these people laid it out before us. But one thing I want to say real quick before we get to the next video and just digress to Ben Norton for a second. There's a lot of people whose criticism of Marxism, fam, is the fact is that they feel that any Marxist wants to get rid of people who think differently than them. And you see people like Caleb and Keaton and all these guys, David, you know what I'm saying? They're willing to talk to people who think differently than them. They're willing to work with them, right? In fact, some of their beliefs are somewhat, when it comes to, their social issues, are a little conservative for some of those members and whatnot. Ben is a bad example of what any leftist ideology is when he wants to just eliminate people or their movement just because they're what he calls, quote unquote, right wing. You never get anything done that way whatsoever. And we saw this. These protesters have been nothing but peaceful until when the cops showed up, or the UN for this matter with the blue helmets, which there's the rumors that they're running around fucking town because it looks like the beatdowns are not that Canadian-like. And even the U.S. truckers who are getting ready to move, they're saying, we're doing this peacefully, we're doing this peacefully, we're doing this fucking peacefully. So what Ben is doing right here by playing the ultimate team sports is really just a bad name for his breed, period. Next video, Oz? Or did you want to say something, fam?
Something about this that's really been bothering me is there seems to be this sort of strain of thinking, and this is kind of going into inter-left stuff, and again, if we can even call some of these people leftists anymore, where there's this notion that the people who were angry at the Capitol on January 6th, the people who are at Trump rallies who are angry, the people who are at these trucker convoys who are angry, that we as the left, our job should be to appeal to these people because they're angry and their anger is righteous. We just need to move their anger in the right direction. But here's what doesn't make sense about that particular line of argument to me is, first of all, these people are mostly like small business owners. They're reactionary small business owners. These are not people who like the left. And I mean, if you want to, as a communist, go and try to convince people that communism is the right way at rallies like this, then by all means, go ahead. I mean, good luck to you. I just don't think it's going to turn out well for you because they hate you more than anything else. Their signs literally say it. Everything they think is bad is communism. So I don't even know like why that's being left out of that conversation. But moreover, a lot of these same people, and this is more of a comment than a question, but I'm sure you guys will have something to add. A lot of these people will also spend all their time dragging the DSA or dragging anybody on like whatever annoying segment of the left there is, or even liberals. And like, yeah, I can't stand liberals. And sometimes the DSA annoys me, as we've talked about on the show before, because it has like certain left factions I don't like. And sometimes other factions of the left and right.
Really quickly, I gotta add a note because I know I'll get attacked for this by these same people we're talking about who are going to be like nitpicking, looking for everything. But I do have to give a little credit because people have asked me about this. DSA on international issues in the past year or two has very drastically improved. Yeah. I very harshly criticized DSA. I mean, DSA openly supported the 2018 coup attempt, the right-wing coup attempt here in Nicaragua. But to be fair, their international committee has become really solid And their recent statements against war over Ukraine were really good. Their statement over Iran, their statement over North Korea, like they've become so good that actually they're now being attacked by like some of those same.
Yeah. Fam, I would look see if there's a connection between DSA and PSL with this new language from Ben Norton coming out there. But go ahead, fam. I'll let you go first. I got a shit ton to say, but you hit it first.
Shit, where do I even start? I mean,
Jesus.
This whole idea that small business owners are the enemy. First of all, aren't all of you small business owners? And I'm not trying to personally attack anybody here. Like, this is just professional, like, debate here. I wish we could all have a debate forum, and I welcome all of them to talk about this.
Exactly.
Because to me, this is like, aren't you a small business owner by having your show on YouTube and making money off of people donating to you? Does that not make you a small business owner? Because I think it does. And I think it's very hypocritical to dismiss all small business owners as being these fascists and these right-wingers that don't like communists. I can tell you for a fact that that's not true, because I actually talked to people. Because I was a bartender and I was a server, and I would talk to people who were small business owners. And guess what? They agreed with me on a lot of things. They had a really negative view of communism because of the decades of propaganda that they've lived with. But boy, did they agree with me on the Democrats. And boy, did they agree with me on the fact that the two-party system is corrupt and that politicians don't care about you. And that the working class is suffering. And they were really good people. So, like, and that's not like a Trumpist thing. Trump knew that the Democratic Party was losing the working class and the small business owner class to whoever was going to get them, right? If it was Bernie Sanders in 2016, and when they fucked Bernie Sanders, then where did they go? They went to Donald Trump. Guess what? Because he told them lies, but he said, "Hey, I'm a regular guy. I'm not a politician. Hey, I support small businesses. You're all great people." That's exactly why he said that. You can't just, again, here's the counter narrative. That's exactly why he did that. Because guess what? The Democratic liberals have been so elitist and so arrogant with all the working class people, including people who start their own small businesses. Now, today, in today's age, you can have a small business and be poor as fuck. You can't equate that to a different time period when having a small business meant that you had all this income, because that's no longer the case. So again, they're basing things on theory that is not applicable to today. So that's one major issue I have, where I have always said, and Bernie even tried to some degree, and he could have tried even harder to appeal to the small business people to say, hey, we're not coming after you. We're coming after the corporations. But with this sort of rhetoric, like, ooh, the petty bourgeois small businesses, you're pushing them away to the right. You're doing exactly the opposite of what you say you want to do. So that's one thing. The other thing, Pasta, is this whole like, DSA is good and AOC is not my enemy. AOC is your fucking enemy. AOC is all of our enemies.
Next clip. That's next clip. Don't get too far ahead. That's the next clip.
Okay, that's the next clip. But okay, so they said DSA is doing well. Like, they're not. DSA is there because they're literally DSA. The whole purpose of that organization, the way it was organized from its history, and you could have Caleb Maupin literally talk about this for fucking hours, because this is what he's really good at. The history of them is literally like created by the intelligence to thwart actual socialist revolutionary change from happening. And here you are, all of a sudden uplifting DSA and saying, and Ronnie is saying, oh, you know, if you're a communist and you want to go to these rallies and talk to them, I mean, more like, but it's like, why not? Like, why not? Oh, I see that. I did that.
We do it all the time. We do it all the time. I just did it a couple weeks ago.
What did I say to Pasta when I saw the no communism sign and the defeat the mandates? I was like, oh God, like this just, it's not communism, guys. It's fascism you hate.
Yes.
And it's like, but how the fuck do you let them know that? How the hell do you meet people where they're at and talk to people and inform them about these things if you're just going to scoff at them and think they're deplorables and never talk to them? Yeah. I don't understand. If I'm comfortable doing it as a fucking Latina and you're not going to tell me that I should or shouldn't do it. You know, she did it. She was like, if you're going to do it, fine. But there's this condescending attitude, right? Like,
well, you know why,
you're not going to get anywhere. Like, no, I've gotten places with those people. You know why?
Yes,
because those people are open to listening. Those people are open to listening, whereas a liberal or a leftist or a progressive, like a lot of these members of DSA, they think they know everything. amazing and they think they're virtuous and they're morally superior to everybody. So they don't listen to you. They think they already have all the answers. Like a person that's working class and that might be a Republican or might not know where they're at, they'll listen to me because they know exactly, they know that these problems are there. They're just blaming the wrong people. And I have these conversations all the fucking time. So you're not going to tell me that these conversations aren't possible, that they're not fruitful, because I've seen them work.
Yeah. And fam, the reason why they act this way is because they think they're better than us, than everybody else, not us. They think they're better than everybody else. They got the cloak of virtuosity over there. Can't even go talk to people. The people who were mad at January 6th were mad because I thought the elections were stolen from them. The people who were at the Truckers Convoy are mad because of the mandates, okay? It's very insulting when you say that we're just paying attention to these people because they're mad. I mean, people at the Black Lives Matter marches are very mad too as well. It's the issues. You always got to digress to the issues. Why are these people here? They're here to talk against police violence. We saw what happened with George Floyd. We see what goes on with the freaking security state, providing the police state all this heavy artillery. Go out there and protest against it. January 6th was a Stop the Steal rally and stuff. But, and you're right, fam. Here's the thing, too, as well. Those people who are at a lot of these rallies and with these conservative rallies, they just don't understand the left. They really don't. And we get the chance to explain to them. I saw somebody at that Defeat the Mandates rally that said, communism is the final answer, is the final play or something. Or I said, it's not. And I said to him, I said, you know what it is? I said, elitism. I said, whether it's communism, capitalism, blah, 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 yada, yada, there's going to be a predator class above us, trying to control us. And we started talking, and we started talking about like, well, those, Trumper kind of kits, those survival kits and stuff like that. You guys are talking about going off the map, commune living, mutual aid. That comes from communism, right? I mean, we have these conversations because, also I want to point out that we're not all communists, by the way. I believe in a mixed economy of sorts. So, what I'm saying, that this mindset that everybody's out there as a leftist, as a communist, is also very wrong as well. I'm trying to adapt to today's times, what I'm saying, and whatever works will be best for us moving forward. Like I said, we could take things from each freaking each ism and make a system that works for all of us with as little suffering as possible. And finally, fam, too, as well, I'm glad you said they can come on, and I wanted to say that too, but they'll never come on. They'll talk about us without mentioning our names, but they'll never come on. And that's the thing. We'll talk
I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. I'll give them, if you guys want to arrange some sort of debate, I'm all open to it. I'm open to this with anybody. I don't care who it is. Like, I will respectfully disagree with you. I will fucking tell you you're wrong. But that's it. This isn't a personal attack. Like, this isn't, an attack on anything you've ever done. This is like specifically addressing these invalid points that were made. And I think it's just coming at it from a very closed mindset of, I just don't understand. It's so ideology first instead of truth first. And I think a lot of journalism for so long has been approached that way. And that's where we're at. I mean, if you learn anything about Julian Assange, and it's interesting because I'm not going to speak for Julian Assange, but I believe in my heart that if he were here, he would be against this narrative, because it's so easy to see. If it's easy for us to see that this narrative that is crumbling before our eyes is so used to divide, and it has been so weaponized to break people apart and to build this sort of animosity between each other instead of the people in power. You like to call them elites. I don't. I like to call them, the empire, the capitalist class, the predator class. Maybe elites goes better with the Republicans. I'm not here to appeal to Republicans. I'm here to appeal to workers. They may be Republican, they may be independent, they may be libertarian, they may be leftist. At this point, it doesn't matter. My ideology is communism and yours is not. Because at the end of the day, right now, what's happening is we can't even have that argument, because we're being like the mass surveillance, the power of this technocratic mass surveillance state is encompassing us all. And it's making it almost impossible for us to do anything, to speak out, to have dissent, to have any sort of counter opposing opinion. And so that's why. And I think that's where the left doesn't understand power. And that's where they miss the link to why this is such an important thing. Why this is so much more important than focusing on a bunch of idiots carrying, one Nazi flag or one Confederate flag or the symbolics of it all, because those people don't have fucking power. The suits in power are the fascists. Why are you so focused on these people that are so minimal, that aren't the vast majority of people today?
Yeah. Yeah, and the reason why we are doing this is nothing personal, like she said. And I feel the same way. It's because it's important. We're pushing back against the divisiveness. This, we have to talk about these things because this is right now. This next clip, we'll get into this right now because this is something I thought in 2016 when we first started the show. I think we were all like gung ho. I watched no video of us doing the top 4 candidates in the Democratic Party, fam, and that was part of the mission. We're gonna change the Democratic Party from the inside because those people align more of us, when it comes to ideology. But that's not the case nowadays for the American left. Let's play this next clip, and we have our guests standing by.
The point is to say, I feel like a lot of the same people making the argument that we have to appeal to these reactionaries are the same people who say anyone who tries to talk to liberal, there's no point in talking to liberals. There's no point to talking to people who call themselves leftists who don't agree with us exactly. And my question to them is why would I want to spend my time trying to, I think we should be appealing to everybody in a way, but why would you prioritize appealing to racist reactionaries over people who actually agree with you if you really are on the left? Who actually do agree with you on a lot of things. A lot of us were liberals at one point. We didn't go from fascist to leftist. I didn't. I was there was a time when I was a good liberal. That's kind of how I grew up. I was more left of most liberals, but I was pretty much liberal. That was the base I came out of. And so I just find it really strange that there's this growing chorus of people, mostly on the internet, who are
entirely on the internet,
who are fuck liberals, fuck leftists, fuck the so-called anti-imperialists. We should be appealing to the white working class. Sure, we should be appealing to the white working class. I don't think that these truckers are the white working class, but I also don't think we should be prioritizing appealing to racists. Are you saying the white working class is all a bunch of right-wing racists? And why only the white working class? What about the rest of the working class? Anyways, those are just some things that I've been thinking about a lot lately. Why these people, but not these people? Yeah, I don't like AOC that much either, but I don't think she's the enemy. And I don't think her base is the enemy. I think her base is the people that we should want. I certainly want her base over the truckers, big, quotes around that. In Canada,
she wants to pick her team.
Trump rallies. I have more of a chance of reaching AOC's base than I do reaching Trump's base. That's for sure.
Really? I mean, really, you do, Rania? Because Rania has not realized that the times have changed right now. You don't have more of a chance of reaching these liberals, the American left, because the American left now are nothing more than fascists. They're for censorship. They're war fucking mongers. They're not the same party that we tried to go in there and speak to. Well, yeah, they were, but now the mask is off completely. And I hate when she goes, "What are you saying? All the white working class are racist?" No, you just said that. You just said they're racist and reactionaries, and that you don't want to try to find anything in common with truckers. You would rather try to find it with AOC because her base is not the enemy. No, it's not. Really, AOC, I mean. AOC and these people who have just lied to us are the worst type of enemy out there. You know what I'm saying? And fam, I'm going to hand it over to you because I don't want to go too long. But the last thing I have to say is too, as well, is when she goes and Ben on the internet, they're all on the internet. You bozos are on the internet, you fucking idiots. Are you serious? You're on the internet. Go ahead, fam.
Actually, in this moment in time, and you're absolutely right, the things have changed. The left has been entirely co-opted. This has not happened overnight. This is something that the intelligence community has done forever. Cynthia McKinney said it herself. That squad is doing their job. That is the value of the squad, is to come in and pretend to be revolutionaries. They have gotten rid of every single revolutionary through smear tactics or through death. So there are no revolutionaries. And the people you're trying to appeal to, AOC's base, is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. No matter how the media tries to portray it or how Twitter algorithms try to portray it, there is not. The vast majority of people are losing faith in even people like AOC every day because they're making clowns of themselves, because they're playing theater and it's getting really obvious. So that base is getting smaller and smaller. And who is that base? it's pretty much the new age of liberals, the real reactionary people that you can't even have a conversation with without being accused of being anti this or anti that. That you can't even have like a normal discussion because they think they already know better than you. So no, AOC is the enemy. AOC is the enemy more often than the visible enemy. And this is like Malcolm X shit. This is like nothing new here.
Yeah.
The fox is worse than the wolf. You can't pretend to me that the person pretending to be your friend, pretending to have your back, pretending to say, I'm going to go and bring the ruckus and fight for Medicare for all, and I'm going to fight for a Green New Deal, is all of a sudden going to be a less of an enemy when they go in there. And they not only don't they do that, they do the bidding of the corporations and still take working people's money. And you're supposed to say you want to find common ground with them. How do you find common ground with somebody that's so manipulative and deceiving? Isn't that a worse enemy isn't the enemy that stabs you in the back far worse than the enemy that you know where they stand? I know where Republican stands, which is why I don't expect anything from them. I don't expect anything from a Republican politician. But at some point I expected something from a Democratic politician. At some point I expected something from a progressive, whatever that means now. And at some point I expected something from the squad. And guess what? They disappointed, and they will continue to disappoint because the system is there to ensure that they continue to disappoint. And so if I'm going to continue giving power to illusions, to social media influencers like AOC, like the squad, that really are there to crush revolutionary movements from ever happening by putting out this facade of progressivism, people who are pro-mandate, people who are pro-censorship, who literally went online to tell her Twitter followers to report people just if they were mean to her. Like this is the kind of people you want to support. I'd rather support people who may not know where they stand politically, but they know that something's up in corruption with the government. I'd rather support people that want to actually take action and do something against the surveillance state and find common ground with that than support somebody that says they're for all these progressive lefty things, but really doesn't show it in action. And I think our number one enemy right now are these elitist, neoliberal, global capitalists like AOC and all these people that are there to guide us and sheep herd people into the Democratic Party, into the arms of the Fourth Industrial Revolution. And again, this is what they don't know. They don't know what they're talking about when it comes to this because they don't know how to make those connections.